President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel.
President Trump cranks up the pressure on deadly drug cartels. The Pentagon sending at least 3 U.S. Navy destroyers to patrol the waters near Venezuela. Joining us now is the DEA Administrator Terry Cole. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us more about the ships in Venezuela? Is that to help deal with drug?
Yeah, good morning, Dana, and thank you for talking about this important topic, especially since Venezuela has turned into a narco-terrorist state that continues to work with the FARC, continues to work with ELN from Colombia to send record amounts of cocaine from Venezuela, from Colombia, into the Mexican cartels that continue to come into the United States at record amounts. We have seized more cocaine this year than past years. The amount of methamphetamine coming into this country continues to be on the uptick, and we still see record amounts of fentanyl coming into our country. But the Venezuelan corruption, the Venezuelan dictatorship, he is a narco-terrorist. They continue to send this poison to the United States, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans, not to mention the TDA members that they send to our country to destroy the beautiful streets of the United States.
And I know that Fentanyl Prevention and Fentanyl Awareness Day, which is today, we have to point out that sometimes if in the meth, in the cocaine, you'll have fentanyl, and so you'll have people end up dying of fentanyl poisoning. What do you want people to know about your efforts today?
Well, I think today, right down the street in Times Square, we have a major event today with all the fentanyl families. And it's critical for us to remember all those lost souls. All this destruction is based on the Mexican cartels sending this poison into our country. Here at DEA headquarters, we have an entire building dedicated to those lost souls. Their photographs are on our entranceway to remind every single DEA employee worldwide of the destruction that these cartels, specifically CJNG and Sinaloa, are causing in the United States.
I want to point out some statistics here. In 2025, so far, 30 million fentanyl pills and 6,000 pounds of fentanyl powder have been seized. In 2024, it was 60 million all told, and 8,000 pounds. Do you think that anything that you all are doing so far is having an effect on cutting these numbers down?
I think thanks to President Trump securing the border, we are going to see a decrease in poisonings this year in the United States. I think due to his efforts with Mexico, we are seeing a willingness for them to cooperate at record levels with the United States and our personnel. And I think together we can continue to save as many American lives as possible. The 330 million Americans expect the Drug Enforcement Administration, our men and women, to be on the streets every single day conducting enforcement operations to save American lives.
Would you support the bombing of the Mexican drug cartels?
So I know that's been in the paper the last few days. I know that decision lies with the president. The men and women of DEA will support the decision that comes from the president. We will complete the mission. But let's remember, we have been at war with these cartels for the last 40 years. The men and women of DEA have been consistent.
The U.S. is sending 3 warships to the waters of Venezuela as part of a major counter-narcotics operation. A White House official has confirmed this to CBS News. We're told that the USS Gravely, the USS Jason Dunham, and the USS Sampson will depart for the region over the next few days. Now, this is a part of President Trump's effort to combat threats from Latin American drug cartels. CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata is at the Pentagon with all the details. So, Charlie, great to have you on. Can you further explain why the U.S. is sending warships specifically to Venezuela?
Yeah, Tarika, officials I've spoken to here say this is strictly a White House decision. This isn't necessarily a military decision. And as you said, the White House has told us those 3 guided missile destroyers, the Gravely, the John Dunham, and the Samson, are expected to head to the waters off Venezuela over the next few days to combat threats from Latin American drug cartels. 4,000 sailors and Marines will be part of that mission. In fact, yesterday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt didn't even rule out the possibility of U.S. troops on the ground in Venezuela. And that the president is prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into the United States. So deploying these battleships is apparently part of that effort. But I have to mention, this isn't the first time destroyers have been deployed to the region. In fact, the Gravely, as I just mentioned there, had been patrolling the Caribbean Sea for months.
And when you think about the drug operations and just how complex, we've been talking about this for years, how much of a difference is this expected to make?
Again, we're talking about a show of force, a deterrent, and they are working closely with the Coast Guard that has been patrolling those waters for years. So really, it's a question of scale. I mentioned the Gravely there. Navy officials said it had been part of a drug interdiction back in May. That just gives you an idea how long this has been going on. They seized 860 pounds of cocaine. A few days ago, the Samson and its crew intercepted drug smuggling vessel seizing around 1,300 pounds of cocaine. That was in the Eastern Pacific. So they try to position their ships along known drug trafficking corridors. They've also stepped up their surveillance, and this is kind of important. Special Navy aircraft are patrolling that area too. But look, it's a big sea to patrol the whole thing. And of course, these ships will be operating in international waters, as explained to me today. How effective they're going to be at least 12, 13 miles off the coast of Venezuela. Venezuela is actually claiming more water than that is theirs and not international.
Oh, wow.
So it may not stem the tide, but you know, it's not the kind of significant naval presence to set up a blockade.
Any idea how long those ships will stay in that area?
No, Jerika, this is really key. We're not even entirely sure they've started making their way there yet, because this is the kind of loose language. The Navy folks that I spoke to said they're not headed there yet. At least the officials I spoke with said that it's a question of how long it will take to get there. In terms of how long the ships could be there, hypothetically, again, that depends on the White House, because from a military perspective, a typical deployment for destroyers like this is usually around 6 months. But at least 2 of those destroyers, which I've already mentioned, have been on patrol for months. So if the idea is to have a constant U.S. naval military presence